Somewhere in the American Southwest right now, someone is standing over a plant with a shovel, sweating, swearing, trying to pry it out of the ground. It's stiff. It's spiky. Its leaves come to points like a fistful of green swords, and its roots run deeper than the hole they're willing to dig. To them, it's a nuisance in the flower bed, a thing to be removed. What they don't know is that the exact plant they're fighting could have fed them, clothed them, washed their hair, and eased their aching joints, all four without a single trip to a store. So how did one dessert plant quietly do the job of a grocery store, a hardware store, a pharmacy, and the entire soap aisle for thousands of years? And why do most of us now look at it and see nothing but landscaping or a hazard, or confuse it with a completely different vegetable? Because almost everything the average person believes about this plant is either wrong or missing, starting with the fact that they think they already know what it is. Welcome to Root Vault. If you'd rather remember what we've forgotten than lose it for good, take a second and subscribe. This is exactly the kind of knowledge that slips away one generation at a time. The plant is the yucca, not the soft, starchy root you fry. We'll get to that mix-up because it turns out to be a 500-year-old mistake. This is the true yucca. The stiff, sword-leaved desert plant with a tall stalk of creamy white bells, the one that looks like it's standing guard over something. There are around 50 species of it, and they grow across an astonishing sweep of the Americas, from Guatemala and Mexico up through the deserts and plains of the United States, all the way to southern Canada and out into the islands of the Caribbean. Early Spanish settlers looked at those pale flower stalks glowing in the desert moonlight and called them lámparas de Dios, the lamps of the Lord. But long before any settler gave it a name, people were living off it. In dry caves across the southwest, archaeologists have pulled out sandals, rope, and baskets woven from yucca fiber that are thousands of years old, so central to daily life that an entire early culture of the region is nicknamed for its basket making. This was never a decoration. It was survival, growing wild in the dirt, and every part of it did a different job. Start with dinner. When a yucca sends up its flower stalk in late spring, it opens dozens of thick, waxy, cream-colored blossoms, and those flowers are food. Across Mexico and Central America, people still eat them today, usually plucking the petals and dropping the bitter center, because that reproductive part turns a meal sour. But the flowers are only the opening course. Some species, like the banana yucca, swell fat, sweet fruits that were roasted, dried into cakes, and stored to eat through winter. The young flower stalk itself, cut before it hardens, roasts up like a vegetable. The seeds were ground into meal. This is a plant that New Mexico thought so highly of that in 1927 the state made the yucca blossom its official flower, chosen, of all people, by a vote of the state's schoolchildren. And yet the part they were eating was almost the least valuable thing the plant offered. Because the real treasure wasn't the flower, it was the leaf. Snap a yucca leaf, and inside those stiff green blades run long, tough fibers, some of the strongest natural cordage material on the continent. Native peoples pounded and soaked the leaves to wash the soft pulp away, then twisted what was left into rope, thread, fishing nets, sandals, mats, and baskets, objects that have survived intact for millennia in the dry desert air. And here's the detail that should stop you. The plant came with its own sewing kit. The hard spine at the tip of a leaf could be worked loose with a strip of fiber still attached to it, a needle already threaded, handed to you by the plant, so you could eat from it, you could clothe yourself with it, and you could also wash with it. Pull up a piece of yucca root or the pale base of the leaves, peel it, crush it, and swirl it in water, and it foams. Real, slippery, soapy lather rising out of a desert plant. Two of the most common species even carry it in their names: soapweed yucca and soap tree yucca. For generations, this was the shampoo of the Southwest. In some indigenous traditions, washing the hair with yucca suds wasn't only cleaning, It was ceremony, used at the moments that mattered most. And that lather isn't folklore or a trick of the eye. It's chemistry, natural compounds called saponins, the plant's own built-in detergent. Which raises a question almost nobody stops to ask: if a plant is manufacturing industrial-strength soap down in its own roots, what else are those compounds doing? Quite a lot, as it turns out. One desert species, the Mojave yucca, can be nearly 1/10 saponin by dry weight, one of the richest natural sources on Earth, and it's packed with other active compounds too, including resveratrol, the same antioxidant people chase in red wine. In traditional medicine across its range, yucca was reached for to calm inflammation and to ease aching arthritic joints. And modern researchers have taken that old reputation seriously enough to study it. Reviews in the scientific literature describe yucca's saponins and polyphenols as showing real anti-inflammatory activity in the lab. Now, this is not a miracle cure, and no honest narrator will tell you to throw out your medicine for a desert plant. But the healers who reached for the soap plant when their knees ached may not have been as far off as we assumed. And the strangest twist in the whole soap story isn't in the medicine cabinet at all. It's in your refrigerator. Here's the irony that should sting a little. Those same saponins, the ones that lathered up desert hair for 1,000 years, are so good at making foam that industry bottled them. Yucca extract is an approved food additive, and one of its most common jobs is putting the head of foam on a glass of root beer. Think about that for a second. The exact chemistry a family once used as shampoo at a sacred spring is now measured into soft drinks and stirred into cattle feed to cut down the smell of a barnyard. We didn't actually lose the knowledge that yucca is useful. We just quietly repackaged it, peeled the story off, and forgot where it came from. And that forgetting runs deeper than a soda can, because the yucca has been keeping a secret this entire time. Look closely at a yucca flower and you will notice something strange. It barely makes any nectar and it barely makes loose pollen. Most flowers are billboards screaming for every bee in the county to drop by. The yucca isn't advertising to anyone, because the yucca has exactly one pollinator on the entire planet, a small, pale moth. And this is no casual arrangement. In the early 1870s, an entomologist named Charles Valentine Riley and the botanist George Engelmann worked out what that moth actually does, and it stunned the scientific world. The female doesn't blunder into pollination by accident the way a bee does. She has specialized, tentacle-like mouthparts found in almost nothing else alive, and she uses them to deliberately gather a little ball of yucca pollen. She flies it to another flower, lays her eggs deep inside its ovary, and then, on purpose, climbs up and packs that pollen onto the flower's stigma, guaranteeing seeds will form to feed her hatching young. The plant, in return, lets some of its seeds be eaten as the fee. Neither one can survive without the other. Charles Darwin, reading the reports, called it the most wonderful case of fertilization ever published. So the plant that fed, clothed, cleaned, and healed a whole continent turns out to hang for its very existence on a single thread, a partnership with one moth. And that, in the end, is what this is really about. Not soap, not rope, threads and how easily they break. Go back to that name for a moment. When Spanish explorers first reached the Americas, they looked at this plant and confused it with a completely different one, the starchy tropical root we now call yucca, or cassava. They fixed the wrong name to it, and 500 years later, we are still using it. We have literally never called this plant by a name that is actually about this plant. From the moment of first contact, we have been staring straight at it and seeing something else. That's the whole story in miniature. A living thing that was once a grocery store, a hardware store, a pharmacy, and a soap counter, all of it growing wild for free, tended by nothing but a moth, became to modern eyes a spiky annoyance to swear at and rip out of the yard. We didn't lose that knowledge to a villain or a ban. We lost it the ordinary way almost all knowledge dies, quietly, one grandmother at a time, until the only lather anyone remembers is the foam on a soda they never knew was made from shampoo. So here is how you actually meet this plant again carefully. First, be certain of what you're looking at and know the rules. Some yuccas, like the Joshua tree, are legally protected, so you take flowers, fruit, and a few leaves, never the whole plant, and never on land where it isn't allowed. For food. In late spring and early summer, gather the open flowers, pull the petals free, and drop the bitter center, the anthers, and the ovary before you cook. A quick boil or a sauté takes the edge right off. If you find a banana yucca in fruit, the ripe pods roast sweet. A young flower stalk, cut while it's still tender enough to snap by hand, roasts like a stem vegetable. For soap, cut a section of root or the fleshy base of the leaves, peel off the skin, crush the white insides, and swish the pulp in a bowl of water until it lathers. Strain out the fibers and you've got a mild wash for your hands or your hair. For cordage, lay a leaf flat, pound and soak it until the green pulp scrapes away and leaves the fibers bare. Then split those fibers into 2 bundles and twist them against each other into a cord that's surprisingly hard to snap. And the one warning that matters most: do not confuse this desert yucca with the cassava root sold at the grocery store. That yucca, spelled with 1 C, is a different plant entirely, and it's genuinely toxic until it's properly cooked. Desert yucca root is soapy, not a starchy staple, and eating a lot of it will turn your stomach thanks to those very same saponins. Mind the sharp leaf tips near your eyes, take only what you need and leave the plant alive to bloom again for its moth. So the next time you see someone out there in the yard, shovel in hand, cursing at that stiff, spiky, sword-leaved plant, you'll know what they're really trying to dig out of the ground. Not a weed. A grocery store, a rope factory, a pharmacy, and a bar of soap, all folded into one living thing, still standing exactly where it stood for thousands of years, still waiting for the one small moth that keeps it alive. If this changed the way you'll look at a plant you've walked past 100 times, subscribe. The vault is full of them, and the next forgotten one is already waiting.